Tonight, Coretta does the gritty while speeding in a school zone. Goldie throws a frisbee into oncoming traffic, and Candles gets doxxed a second time.
Over the last few months, I've been hyper aware of my own porn consumption, and it's been pretty bad. There was a point where I was off of it completely, but recently I've fallen back into the habit. And I hate that. I just hate feeling like I have no control. But the last 2 weeks have been a bit of a nice rebound for me. I'm happy to say that I'm back to once a week. It's been the most effortless reduction in porn consumption I've ever experienced. You know, yesterday I had to consciously think about when the last time I looked at porn was, and it was a week before that. It used to be a daily occurrence for me. How did this happen? Well, it's controversial to say the least. Stick with me. I'm going to share my experience with you. You might agree with the method, you might really heavily disagree, but I can absolutely guarantee that it's one you have not heard before. Contrary to what you might believe, I don't think porn is a good thing. What? Yes, I'm a sex-positive channel, but it would be a disservice to you if I told you that I personally thought it was a healthy element in any life. Maybe, under very specific circumstances, it can be introduced to an aging couple's sex life. Maybe that's how they spice things up. But outside of that scenario, there's not much good it can really do for you. But that doesn't mean you can't control it. Here's the deal. You need to start looking at porn the same way a drinker looks at alcohol, a responsible drinker. Someone who drinks alcohol responsibly doesn't look at beer as the disease. It's something to be enjoyed in moderation, as a reward for hard work. Someone who has a healthy relationship with their alcohol doesn't see it as this over-oppressive force that steals their attention. They know that they have control over their drink and how much they drink. When you stop treating a porn-watching habit as this overpowered force in your life, it becomes not that big of a deal, and it's much easier to deal with. If you don't want it to have power over you, stop acting like it does. Watching porn instead of having sex is like drinking a vodka shot instead of drinking a beer. It's pretty similar, just way more powerful. It has the potential to get out of control, which is why you need to approach it carefully. And not everyone can handle a vodka shot, but just because you can doesn't mean it's bad that you can handle it. And did I mention that there's evidence that these two habits have always been connected? Alcohol abuse and porn addiction are frequently present together. As is the case with many other mental health conditions, porn addiction tends to make alcohol abuse worse, and alcohol abuse tends to make porn addiction worse. When these two conditions are both present, they can cause catastrophic personal and relationship damage. That sounds really bad, but when I read that, all I'm seeing are two issues that can be fixed together because they are so similar in their patterns. If you start looking at porn the same way you look at alcohol, something to be enjoyed occasionally, I promise you'll start seeing improvements. That's all well and good, but how do I put this into action? I have a method. It's worked for me. But before we get into it, I have to say this, and I have to say it several times. I do not want to restrict this video only to viewers over 18, because I know that 15-year-old me needed to hear this information. I needed someone to tell me that I wasn't going to hell just for masturbating.
Welcome to hell, motherfucker!
That being said, what I'm about to suggest is an advanced form of porn consumption, and it's something that needs to be handled carefully. I would not recommend this to anyone under the age of 18, or anyone who doesn't really need to add this bit of control to their sexuality. In the same way a bartender will not recommend a fireball to a first-time drinker. Keep that in mind. If you're struggling with your porn watching habits, you need to start restricting it to once a week. But not only that, once a week, I will set aside an entire evening. I tell myself, okay, this is the acceptable window if you want to watch porn. Also, if you're going to watch it, you might as well make it a productive activity. So, instead of just watching it, I'll draw my own porn. with references from the web. Now, am I really suggesting that you should start drawing your own porn? It sounds insane and irresponsible, but all I can do here is report to you what has worked for me. And as crazy as it sounds, I'm confident that this is a legitimate way to take back control of your life. Not to mention, it's some of the most fun I've ever had, and it's allowed me to get all of my sexual tension out in one big event. I don't even feel like doing it the other days because this one day was very, very effective. If you've been with this channel for a while, you might remember a video I did called My Sexual Journey. It was my capstone project for college. That was a fun experience. I'm sure my professor had fun watching that. In this video, I detailed my entire character arc of being a devoted Catholic, going to college, learning about others' experiences, and changing my views of sexuality and sexual wellness. I used to think I was going to hell for thinking about sex at all, because I had some role models when I was younger tell me some very biased things about sex. Things that I don't believe now, and things that I think actively hampered my own dating life, but whatever, nature versus nurture. The point is, in that video, I briefly mentioned this practice of drawing my own porn, and how it shaped my current view of sex as more of an artistic expression. Everybody in the comments of that video called it the 12-hour goon sesh, because I mentioned that these sessions could go upwards of 12 hours. Which is true, this activity can last that long. My thinking behind this practice is this. This one action has been immensely helpful in curbing my own sexual thoughts and actions. I know that a lot of you watching are single and alone. It's just the way it is. We don't have a partner to share sexual experiences with. So, rather than caving into the allure of constantly browsing Rule 34, I've chosen to take that tendency and create a fun activity out of it, in a safe environment. As a byproduct of this activity, my art skills have skyrocketed. With each session, I determine something I want to improve in. Maybe this angle will help me draw the torso, and that's what I'll focus on. Or maybe I want to draw in perspective. This POV shot will help me achieve that. Sometimes I am doing this for 12 hours, 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. Would I recommend doing it for this long? Definitely not. But I bring this up to discuss another benefit of this practice. We've learned about real sex in other videos on this channel. Real sex is listening to your body, to your partner's body, and as a guy, you want to focus on your endurance. I've talked to a lot of girls about their sex lives. It's a thing at college. But a lot of straight sex is disappointing because men don't last very long in bed. It's just the truth. I read yesterday that like 50% of women fake their orgasms, which is kind of sad. One way as a man to work on that is by working on your endurance and locking in during this activity. When you're drawing this stuff, you're completely in the zone. You're focused on the smallest details, and you're taught patience and careful observance of the process. There is no way to do this activity quickly, and you can't do it halfway because it won't work. The longer you can build this tension, the better the release. Men need to learn how to pace themselves during sex, and how to take great care in what they're doing. Every action is intentional. You're not just focusing on what feels good in the moment, because I know that in order to achieve the next level in this activity, I need to take time to properly light and pose my characters. Things like that will improve your art, and it'll be the most fun you've had this week. One thing I'm wondering is, do other artists do this? It can't just be me. I looked around a bit and I found these responses. Well, I don't stare at my art and masturbate. I do, however, find my art arousing. When drawing it, creating it, making personal porn is hot. I'm building something erotic, something from my lusts, and giving it a vision. And then when you're done, the feeling is usually over. I don't look back to it. It's more so creating the porn that's hot. Another person. I do get aroused when I draw sometimes, yes. But the thing with me is, when I start drawing and I go for a while, I enter this trance-like state where little else matters besides drawing. Not even masturbating seems to be important enough to stop. I get pretty annoyed when I'm interrupted, and it feels like I need to shift gears to even respond to a question. Lastly, I can go for 12 hours a piece like that. And when I stop, I honestly feel like I wake up sometimes. I guess that's why I can't do it in between. So here we have somebody else that was able to achieve 12 hours, which makes me feel better. I know I'm not crazy here, But there are certain moral responsibilities you have to take if you do this. Rule number 1, never draw someone from real life in your drawings. They should be characters made up just for the drawing. This not only creates something with the potential to ruin a relationship if it gets out, but it's also very morally detestable. This activity is supposed to be a sort of exercise of your sexuality, not something that creates entirely new problems. And drawing your own porn won't work for everyone. It depends on who you are. Do you tend to have an addictive personality? Does porn already have a very negative impact on your real-world behaviors? Some might say that continuing to watch porn in any amount will negatively impact your life. But research has shown us that that's just not true. If you're a man who already exhibits difficulties managing anger, or you have deep-seated trauma, watching porn may exacerbate these problems. If this describes you, it's best not to do this activity. Same goes for alcohol if you didn't notice. I'm telling you, the parallels for porn and alcohol are everywhere. On the other hand, if your behavior fits that of someone who can effectively manage their emotions, but you'd still like to curb your porn consumption, this practice might be something to look into. Of course, there are other effects of porn that do not harm the self. People often cite the abuse that takes place in the industry at large. Low income or otherwise desperate women being persuaded into a career that can damage body and mind. And that is definitely something you don't want to contribute to. For that reason, whenever I draw my own porn, I use references from other drawn works. It's slightly more ethical than supporting an adult studio who might abuse their talent. At the end of the day, it's important to self-examine and determine whether or not this would be a net positive for you. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone who isn't an adult. But the important thing about sexuality is that exploring it is normal, and we can't censor these things. There's been a huge push to ban pornography around the world, and I fear that this will lead to a second prohibition period with similar effects. Instead of curbing alcohol consumption, it only pushed people to create it without regulation. But that's a topic for another day. The point is, your sexuality is a powerful tool, and it's about time you take control of it. Thank you for watching. I love you all. Good night.